How can a tiny fish swallow a creature 4 times its size? And why does that meal sometimes kill it? Deep in the lightless ocean, where food is scarce and every meal is a gamble, survival rewrites the rules of anatomy. Meet the black swallower, a fish no longer than your hand, yet capable of devouring prey that looks absurdly oversized, like stuffing a sleeping bag into a coffee mug. Its jaws unhinge, its stomach stretches, and its teeth curve inward like biological barbed wire. Evolution didn't make it polite, it made it desperate. But here's the twist. Sometimes that oversized meal doesn't digest. It rots, releases gas, and inflates the fish like a drifting balloon of regret. So why would nature design a creature this extreme? And what does that tell us about life under crushing pressure, where hesitation can mean starvation? This is the black swallower, the most voracious creature in the deep ocean. Imagine a place where the sun has never existed, not set, not hidden, just never arrived. A world permanently locked in black, like someone turned off reality itself. That's the deep ocean, hundreds to thousands of meters below the surface, where pressure crushes, temperatures hover just above freezing, and food is basically a rumor. Up here, on land, skipping a meal is an inconvenience. Down there, it's a life-threatening mistake. There's no lush ecosystem, no plants, no easy energy source. Photosynthesis, the process that powers most life on Earth, completely disappears once sunlight fades. And without plants, the entire food chain collapses into something thinner, slower, and far more desperate. Energy trickles down from above in tiny, unreliable packages. Dead plankton, scraps of organic debris, the occasional unlucky fish drifting down like a forgotten snack. Scientists call it marine snow. Sounds peaceful. It's not. It's more like living off crumbs that fall from someone else's table, except you don't know when the next crumb is coming. And that's the real problem. In the deep sea, you don't just hunt, you wait. Sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Every movement costs energy, and energy is a currency you cannot afford to waste. Imagine walking around with a battery stuck at 5% your entire life. That's the baseline. So creatures here evolve differently. They don't chase speed, they optimize survival. Muscles are often weaker, movements slower, metabolisms reduced to a near crawl. It's not laziness, it's budgeting. Every calorie is carefully spent, because there's no guarantee you'll earn it back anytime soon. But then comes the paradox. If food is rare, when it finally appears, you can't afford to be picky. Down here, the rule isn't eat what you need, it's eat what you can. And preferably, everything. Because that small fish drifting in front of you, that might be the only meal you see for the next 2 weeks, or the next month, or longer. There's no delivery service, no backup plan, no second chance menu. This creates a brutal kind of logic. If something looks even remotely edible, you go for it. No hesitation, no sizing up, no polite consideration of whether it might be too big. Because too big is a surface world luxury. In the deep ocean, evolution favors risk takers. Creatures that hesitate starve. Creatures that overcommit at least have a shot. And this is where things start to get weird. Really weird. You begin to see animals with oversized mouths, expandable stomachs, and bizarre body proportions that make absolutely no sense until you realize what they're designed for. Not efficiency, not elegance, but opportunity. It's like evolution said, you may only get one chance, so when it comes, be ready to go all in. Some species develop massive jaws compared to their body size. Others evolve distensible stomachs, organs that can stretch far beyond what should be physically reasonable. Teeth become less about chewing and more about holding on. Escape-proof, one-way systems. Because if your prey escapes, that's not just a missed meal. That could be the end. And here's the uncomfortable truth. In this environment, failure isn't dramatic. It's quiet, slow. You don't get chased down by a predator. You just run out of energy, gradually, inevitably. So the deep sea doesn't reward caution. It rewards extremes. And that's exactly the kind of world that creates something like the black swallower. A fish that doesn't just eat prey, it commits to it. Because in a place where meals are rare, unpredictable, and often fleeting, hesitation is more dangerous than overconfidence. So when something finally appears in front of you, something big, something almost impossible, you don't ask, "Can I eat this?" You ask, "Can I afford not to?" Because down here, where darkness is permanent and food is a gamble, every opportunity is a risk. And every risk might be your last. Where meals can be weeks apart, you don't get to miss. Now, if you're going to survive in a world where meals are rare and unpredictable, you don't just need luck. You need engineering. Biological engineering that looks less like a fish and more like a loophole in the rules of physics. The black swallower is exactly that loophole. At first glance, it doesn't look impressive. Small body, dark, almost featureless skin, no glowing lure, no intimidating spikes. It's not built to scare anything. It's built to outcommit everything. Because this fish doesn't chase, it doesn't tear, it doesn't even really bite the way most predators do. It does something far stranger. It swallows. But not in the way you're imagining. Not quick, not clean, not efficient. Slow, relentless, mechanical. Like watching a zipper close over something that absolutely should not fit. Let's start with the jaws. In most animals, jaws are limited by structure. Bones meet, muscles contract, and that's your range. But the black swallower plays by different rules. Its jaw joints are incredibly flexible, loosely connected in a way that allows the mouth to open far wider than its body suggests. Think of it less like a hinge and more like elastic. This isn't just opening wide. This is dislocating without actually dislocating. The lower jaw can drop dramatically, while the upper structures shift just enough to create a massive, gaping entrance. Suddenly, this tiny fish has a mouth that looks like it belongs to something much bigger, something that should be starring in a horror movie, not hiding in the deep sea. But an open mouth isn't enough, because catching prey is only half the battle. Keeping it is everything. That's where the teeth come in. They're long, thin, and sharply curved backward, like rows of tiny hooks. Not designed to slice, not meant to chew. Their entire job is simple. Once something goes in, it does not come out. Imagine trying to pull your hand out of a bag filled with fish hooks pointing inward. Every movement backward only digs you in deeper. That's what the prey experiences. There's no escape strategy, no reversing course. The more it struggles, the more trapped it becomes. And here's the unsettling part. The black swallower often attacks prey that is still alive, still moving, still fighting. But it doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. Because once the grip is secure, the process begins. It doesn't tear. It doesn't rip pieces off. It doesn't chew. It swallows. Slowly. Methodically. One section at a time. Picture a snake consuming a large animal, but scaled down, compressed, and happening in near total darkness. The fish starts at one end, often the tail, and begins to work its way forward. Muscles contract in waves, pulling the prey inward, inch by inch. This is called engulfment feeding, and it's less about force and more about persistence. A quiet, patient kind of domination. And then we get to the most absurd part of this entire system, the stomach. Because everything we've described so far only works if there's somewhere to put the meal. In most animals, the stomach has limits, capacity, structure. boundaries. The black swallower treats those ideas as suggestions. Its stomach is highly distensible, meaning it can stretch to extraordinary sizes without tearing. The walls are thin, elastic, and designed to expand far beyond what you'd expect from a fish this small. It's not just big for its size, it's disproportionate, unreasonable. Like inflating a balloon inside a paper cup, and somehow, the cup doesn't break. As the prey moves deeper inside, the stomach expands to accommodate it, reshaping the entire body of the fish. What was once sleek and narrow becomes swollen, distorted, almost unrecognizable. At this point, the predator looks like it lost an argument with basic geometry. But evolution doesn't care about appearances, it cares about outcomes. And in this environment, the outcome is simple. Maximize every rare opportunity. Because here's the core principle behind all of this. The black swallower doesn't evaluate prey based on size. It doesn't calculate risk the way you might expect. It operates on a far more extreme rule set. If it fits, even slightly, it's worth trying. Because the cost of hesitation is starvation. And the cost of failure? Well, that's a problem for later. So the fish commits, fully. It doesn't ask if the prey is too large. It doesn't second-guess the physics. It doesn't negotiate with reality. It just starts swallowing. Slowly. Inevitably. Until either the meal is secured, or the consequences catch up. Because in the deep sea, survival doesn't reward caution. It rewards those willing to take the biggest bite, even if that bite might be bigger than them. It doesn't care how large the prey is, only that it can be swallowed. Now here's where the story takes a turn, from impressive to unsettling. Because the same strategy that makes the black swallower a survivor can also make it a victim of its own success. It starts the same way every time. A rare opportunity appears in the darkness. A fish, larger than it should reasonably handle. But in the deep sea, reasonable isn't part of the decision-making process. The black swallower does what it was built to do. It commits. Jaws expand. Teeth lock in. The slow, mechanical swallowing begins. Inch by inch, the prey disappears into a stomach that stretches far beyond its intended limits. And for a moment, it works. The fish has secured a massive meal, an energy jackpot in a world where calories are scarce. It should be a victory, a biological win. But then, time becomes the problem. Because swallowing something is one thing, digesting it is another. The deep ocean is cold. Metabolism is slow. Chemical reactions that break down food don't happen quickly here. Enzymes take their time. Processes drag. And when the prey is oversized, far beyond normal proportions, the system starts to lag behind. The meal just sits there, trapped, undigested. At first, that might not seem like an issue. After all, the food is inside, safe, secured, waiting. But biology doesn't pause just because digestion does. Inside that stretched stomach, the prey begins to change. Cells break down, tissues soften. Bacteria, either from the prey itself or introduced during feeding, start doing what bacteria always do. They decompose. And decomposition comes with a side effect. Gas. Not a little, not manageable. We're talking about a steady buildup of gases like methane and other byproducts of decay, accumulating inside a sealed, expanding space. It's like leaving food in a closed container and forgetting about it. Except the container is alive, and it can't open. As the gases build, pressure increases. The stomach, already stretched to an extreme, begins to inflate even further. The fish's body distorts, swelling outward, its silhouette transforming into something unnatural, bloated, tight, almost spherical. At this point, the black swallower isn't just carrying a meal, it's carrying a biological time bomb. And here's where physics joins the conversation. Because deep in the ocean, pressure is immense. It keeps gases compressed, contained. But as the fish loses control of its buoyancy, thanks to that growing internal gas pocket, it begins to rise. Slowly at first, then inevitably, upward, from the crushing depths toward the surface. And as it ascends, the external pressure decreases, which means the gas inside expands even more. What was already a problem becomes catastrophic. The fish inflates further, its body pushed to limits it was never meant to handle. It can't swim properly. It can't hunt. It can't even stabilize itself. It's no longer a predator. It's drifting, helpless. A dark, swollen shape rising through layers of water it was never meant to see. Eventually, it reaches levels where the pressure difference is too much. The internal gas expands to a point where the body simply can't compensate. Sometimes, the stomach ruptures. Sometimes, the body wall gives way. And sometimes, it just floats there, lifeless, an overinflated silhouette carrying the remains of a meal that was too ambitious to process. Scientists have actually found these fish near the ocean's surface, dead or dying, with prey still clearly visible inside them. Perfectly preserved in a sense, like a snapshot of a fatal decision. A small fish, a massive meal, frozen in consequence. And it's hard not to see the irony. In a world where starvation is the constant threat, the black swallower evolves to take the biggest possible risks, to seize any opportunity, no matter how extreme. And sometimes, that strategy works. But sometimes, it doesn't. Because evolution doesn't guarantee perfection. It only guarantees that something worked often enough to continue. And the black swallower lives right on that edge, between success and self-destruction. It doesn't get killed by predators. It doesn't lose in a fight. It loses to the very thing that keeps it alive. Its own meal, its own instinct, its own design. It isn't killed by a predator, but by the consequences of its own hunger. So the black swallower isn't reckless, it's specialized. In a world where food is rare and timing is everything, hesitation can be just as deadly as overconfidence. What looks like a fatal mistake is actually an extreme survival strategy shaped by pressure, scarcity, and pure evolutionary logic. Down there, it's simple. Go big or go hungry. And sometimes, going big works just well enough to keep the species alive, even if individuals don't make it. Nature doesn't design for safety. It designs for probability. So here's the question. If you lived in a world where your next meal might not come for weeks, would you play it safe or risk everything on one impossible bite? And honestly, do you think this fish is desperate or just perfectly adapted to a brutal system? If this made you see the deep ocean differently, hit like, subscribe, and share. There's a lot more strange logic hiding in the dark.